Welcome back once again. Thank you so much for joining us. Coming to you live from Orlando West in the Southwestern Township, better known as Soweto. We continue with our special broadcast this June 16 Youth Day, live from the Hector Peterson Memorial. A moment or two ago, an official wreath-laying ceremony took place here. We saw the likes of Premier David Makura, accompanied by the Joburg Mayor Park Stau, as well as those who were present on that fateful day, come right here to my right and lay wreaths in honor of the blood that was lost on that day, of the faithful or the valiant, the brave youngsters who took to the streets to demonstrate against their grievances. Inferior education is what they were fighting against. Now, let me take you on a quick trip down memory lane. In 1974, an official state plan to introduce Afrikaans as a key language for key subjects among black people was introduced. It began then in 1974. It was to take effect in 1976. Teachers objected, youngsters objective, and we also saw then the youth take to the streets, and it led to the events of June 16, what is known as the Soweto Uprising. So the central theme there was education. So how better is it to be joined by the Education MEC in the province of Gauteng, Mr. Panyaza Lesufi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Ayanda. Thank you so much. Good.
The fight all those years ago was for the quality of education. They deemed Afrikaans as a language of the oppressor. It would put them on a deficit, a disadvantage, because those key subjects, maths and science, would have to be taught in Afrikaans. What strides have we made to make sure that in the townships particularly, there is quality education for those who live here?
Well, the power of choice is the best symbol that we've introduced to South Africans. I mean, everyone can choose where they want to go, which simply means that we've managed to open the doors of learning and culture. A lot of children that would have not dreamt to go to some of our former model schools, or vice versa. Some people have not dreamt that they leave the rural areas to come to our township schools, or leave a really bad education to come to here and study here. So we're quite excited that we've moved with the quality of education. If you check the issue of language as well, is that nowadays children have choice. There's no longer that pressure for you to do this particular language. And we've also ensured that we destroyed, we had 16 different departments of education. We had a Department of Education for Zulus, for Xhosas, for Afrikaners. Now we have one dynamic education department. We have a curriculum that is speaking to our own, is contributing to skills development in the country. We have made opportunities available to our young ones in various universities. It's not up on the basis of your financial status that determine whether they can go to university or not, that we give support to those things. So if you check from subject choices, the careers that no one never thought that an African can either drive an aeroplane or fly an aeroplane, or can be a chartered accountant. We've got those opportunities. So we've really moved, but there's still challenges that we still need to concretize and finalize, especially our township education. We really need to ensure that we improve it.
Especially, you spoke about the township education system there, or some of the infrastructure is what I want to discuss. The schools in the former Model C areas, like you did mention, they've got recreational facilities. You can do netball there, you can do tennis, you can play squash, you can swim, etc. What about such facilities for children in townships, and not only recreational activities, but also classrooms? We know that sometimes the tables and the chairs are wanting. They leave much to be desired. Speak to us about that, please.
Well, it's for us to concretize the basics and also ensure that there is sharing of resources. We believe that it's no longer the case that in the township you need to play, for example, netball and soccer only. There are learners that want to participate in cricket. There are learners that want to participate in athletics or rugby. So those schools that are close by, we need to find a mechanism of ensuring that when we build an infrastructure, it's an infrastructure that can be shared by all our learners, so that you don't confine a certain grouping of learners to say you can only play this kind of sport, you can't play this kind of sport. So we need to work on those things, and that is why we are twinning some of our schools so that we can share resources and have resources available to all our learners. But check the number of learners that have come out of our schooling environment that are competing in international competitions, especially in sport and rugby and other and swimming. So I'm quite excited that we need to improve the infrastructure, but at the same time keep the basics. The basics means that every learner must have a desk, every learner must have textbook, every learner must ensure that there's a teacher in front of that particular learner. So that's the basics that we have, including sanitations, because sanitation is dignity. So if we don't have strong sanitation in our schools, we'll not be in a position to afford an opportunity for our learners to learn in an environment that is conducive for learning. So we want to put the basics in place place, but at the same time compete with the best in the world. And to compete with the best in the world, we are investing in ICT. I'm quite excited that from the 21st of July this year, actually next month, 21st of July, all our high schools in Gauteng, in particular, our grade 12s, they're going paperless. These children no longer use a chalk. These children no longer use a chalkboard. These children no longer be asked to go outside the classroom to go and clean a duster. They will going paperless, so that we can ensure that all our matriculants in this particular province are positioned to compete with other matriculants in any part of the world. And this is an investment that we've been encouraged by the June 16 generation. We believe we don't have to betray the soul of these young ones. Those that laid their lives for us to be where we are, we need to ensure that we safeguard that and ensure that the doors of learning and culture indeed are open for all of us.
We'll have to leave it there. I'm afraid we have run out of time. So much to talk about. I would have loved to touch on the legal process around those dual medium schools. There has been some litigation there, and also the pairing of schools is something that's up for discussion. There's a number of issues. I mean, the MEC and I were also talking about that famous quote from Mr. Verwoerd, where he says the Bantu child is only good for drawing water and the like. What good is maths or science to them? So that inferior quality of education, speaking to whether or not our youngsters today are taking up those subjects of maths and science and whether or not they're excelling. Is that the residue of the apartheid regime, or is that something that we can work on and defeat today? So some of the topical issues. So I'm going to let the MEC go, at least for now. We'll catch up with him when schools reopened. He did mention that June holidays are about to take effect soon, so he's going to take a little bit of a rest. I will get him and interview him when the schools reopen on those issues and others. But for now, it's back to studio. In fact, a quick ad break. We'll be back with more in just a moment.